My presentation is on global warming affecting plankton. There's three occurrences of plankton affected by global warming. One being of a global dimming effect, where plankton helps with its own biology against ultraviolet light, producing clouds to protect against, and is which was surprising. The second is catabolic growth from global warming, for more tendencies to have photosynthesis occur of warmer waters, and bloom of which is great that they get to overpopulate but tends to kill off lots of fishes and affect the ecosystem in a bad way. Thirdly, the general consensus that global warming does affect plankton population for no growth. It ultimately affects the production of oxygen and the livelihood of the ecosystem in the coastal and other areas that is not to be concernful, since the first two cases shows the plankton are bountiful and resilient. In all three cases, I will give examples. Scenario 1. The global dimming effect after the global warming of the plankton. Even when global warming occurs, the phytoplankton recovers every 3 days after exposure to ultraviolet light. In the article from NASA, and emits a cloud-like substance called DMS. Its recovery rate, one may say, is astounding, but more so of how it goes against global warming. Here you see where phytoplankton exists in green. Lots of fishes and affect the ecosystem in a bad way. Thirdly, the general consensus that global warming does affect plankton population for no growth. It ultimately affects the production of oxygen and the livelihood of the ecosystem in the coastal and other areas that is not to be concernful, since the first two cases shows the plankton are bountiful and resilient. In all three cases, I will give examples. It's how the phytoplankton responds to adaptation at a small level against global warming of the first scenario that is intriguing. Ultraviolet light acts on plankton. Plankton protects themselves producing DMSSP. Gets broken down to DMS by bacteria, then filters from the ocean into the air and interacts with oxygen to create different types of particles, sulfurs, for water to cling onto to form clouds. Here's how phytoplankton behave under ultraviolet light. That was scenario 1. Scenario 2. Global warming, major photosynthetic growth and bloom of phytoplankton. Basically, other tropical regions strived on warmer regions like AF spreads out more so, and that of hydrothermal phytoplankton to regions that once was CSA and CFA, where plants harbor there was striving at colder regions is now displaced. There's enormous amount of heat and light at regions that can strive better for growth in the water than on land, such as freshwater algae seen in China. pH of the ocean has seen change from that of 8.4 to 7.7 as well. Basically, since there's more light and heat from global warming, there tends to be more photosynthesis and growth of phytoplankton. Sometimes in a way that affects the fishes around them, such as in one mystery of how so many dead fishes washed ashore. The cause is shown in two diagrams. First off, phytoplankton's population builds up. Then stage 1 occurs, where the buildup of dead phytoplanktons form hydrosulfate in the center. In stage 2, bacteria decomposes the phytoplanktons and form methane gases in the sediment. and trapped for later to be released. A low pressure system occurs, bringing stage 3. Stage 4 is the low pressure system, bringing up the sediment, releasing the gas. Stage 5 occurs, where the gas interacts with the oxygen, paralyzes the fish, and kills some of the fishes and suffocates many of them. And then the strange occurrence of fishes on the beach. Dead fishes on the beach. Maybe got to do with global warming of fishes washed up on the sea. Scenario 2 complete. Scenario 3. Is it possible of a decline of plankton due to global warming? One effect seen for sure is how the ecosystem is affected. Even if 1/3 of carbon is taken in and 50% of the world's oxygen is produced by plankton, there are examples. There was only a count of 1/4 phytoplankton affected by a 5 to 6 degree increase of ocean waters due to global warming. What happened? Here are compiled graphs that show when plankton is affects the ecosystem, oxygen, and other concerns. What happens when there's little numbers of plankton? Vast amounts of species die out extraordinarily. Strange number of dead birds. 20 to 30% catch of salmon in Oregon, British Columbia, and Washington in the year 2005. Small sardines to large whales are affected. Seabirds, seals, and other mammals are affected. Basically from zooplankton and phytoplankton that are low in numbers. Global warming affects the conveyor belt of life for the plankton. When inclement weather occurs, there tends to be less mixing of CO2. This phenomenon, if it does exist, is a concern is about the conveyor belt stagnating to have water in the north caused by global warming to be shut off, and not just warm water. This diagram shows that on high, low, and low tide, when it's active, having both kinds of tides, plankton growth is at 100% at mid-range, at hinder range, and foreman range. But on tides that are low tides, tends to be less, and tides that are at high tides tends to be less as well. Here's a diagram that shows plankton going through a carbon fixation, exchanging from CO2 to create O2 in the air. Many factors possibly caused by global warming affects the growth of plankton, like lack of wind or of wind from the south like the Santa Ana, or too warm and not enough cold winds from the north, banging off the waves for nutrients to mix at comfortable temperatures. And also it is stagnant currents and fish is not moving around in cold and warm waters for movement of nutrients to flow. And that is also no CO2 mixture to sink due to stagnant stratification, where growth of phytoplankton occur from the bottom of the subsidence and that of upwelling of nutrients. That too occluded weather of non-existent of warm air of CO2 not present in the ocean are some of the many factors detailed in the paper. Scenario 3 is complete. Here's pictures of plankton in the global scale from most to least. I'm not aware there are scenario 3 like graphs on the internet.